Coming up, ICT regular contributor John Tashuda is back to talk tribal sovereignty and the sounds of waila music from the Tohono O'odham Nation. Stick around to hear Gertie and the TO Boyz. I'm Mackenzie Allen Charmley. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona PBS is proud to support Indian Country Today. For 6 decades, we've provided television programs and now digital content. But we go beyond that, sending outreach teams across Arizona, offering workshops in language and literacy, family engagement and community outreach, and supporting tribal communities with early learning and school readiness resources. Join us at azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Chinangale, we're glad you could join us. Aaliyah is away. We start in Alaska, where the results of ranked choice voting could make history. Yupik Representative-elect Mary Peltola appears to be leading the vote, but tallies can take longer than normal given the ranked choice voting system. Enacted for the first time in Alaska this year, ranked choice voting allows voters to rank candidates on the ballot in order of preference. Peltola, a Democrat, is a few percentage points short of winning outright with a majority over Republicans Sarah Palin and Nick Begich, who are split about half of the overall first-pick votes. The Alaska Division of Elections still has thousands of ballots waiting to be counted, including ballots sent through mail. However, state officials are aiming to certify the election results on November 29th. If Peltola wins, she will be the first woman and Alaska Native to serve a full term in Congress for the state. Last week, the Kansas State Board of Education recommended that the state's public school districts eliminate Native American mascots. The board approved a motion making a strong recommendation that Kansas public K-12 non-tribal schools should retire Native American-themed mascots and branding to reduce their harmful impacts on students. The board's goal is to make these changes within the next 3 to 5 years. Supporters of the recommendation claim that the board only made this recommendation and it won't affect local school board decisions. Alex Redcorn, assistant professor of educational leadership at Kansas State University, is hopeful for the future.
There are some limits to it, and I think the state board is doing what is within their power at this moment in time to try to retire this practice that they are recognizing as outdated. And part of it's because they actually engaged in conversations that they've never engaged in before and started to really think about this in new ways. And so they recognize that the process of learning about this issue and peeling back the layers of it is a productive process, and there are reasons to do it. And so they did it as a board through some learning activities, and they're hoping that other local boards will do the same.
The board's goal of retiring Native American mascots is to address racism and the negative impact the messaging can have on Indigenous students. Board member Melanie Haas believes these mascots deliver messaging that is harmful, and it is important for these districts to recognize that. The only board member to oppose the motion, Michelle Dombrowski, stated that this issue is beyond the board's capacity. Dombrowski feels that relationships built with tribes at a local level would be more effective to fixing this issue. In Canada, British Columbia, officials are proposing historic changes to child welfare laws to uphold Indigenous rights. The province says the goal of the legislation is to keep Native children in the care of their communities. APTN's Lee Wilson has the story.
At a press conference, the BC government says it will be the first province in Canada to recognize Indigenous people's jurisdiction over child and family services through legislation. The changes will be the largest in more than 25 years. Mitzi Dean, BC Minister of Children and Family Development, says their new bill will modernize the Children and Family Community Services Act.
Indigenous peoples have long told government that the current child welfare system is a continuation of harmful colonial practices. The calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission begin with demands for change in the child welfare system.
The legislation, co-developed by Indigenous leaders, will support Indigenous people in re-establishing, developing, and exercising their own child welfare laws in their own community, and help address and reduce the disproportionate number of Indigenous children in provincial care. Stephanie Atleo, counselor for Cowichan Tribes, says the recognition of their rights to care for their children is a step in the right direction.
The recognition of our inherent rights to govern and provide services for our children and families provide a new and positive path forward. It is the inherent right of the Cowichan Tribes to protect, care for, and nurture our children.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Just like on Turtle Island, diabetes rates continues to soar in Australian Indigenous communities. According to new research, the rates of a disease in Central Australia are some of the highest in the entire world. Doctors are trying to close the life expectancy gap, especially among rural Indigenous communities. Researchers also found rates are rapidly increasing, with more people diagnosed every year at far younger ages. The report's lead author, Dr. Matthew Hare, says settler colonialism played a part in how diabetes has affected Indigenous communities.
We think this epidemic is largely grounded in the impacts of colonisation and the dramatic changes in ways of life that has caused for many people living in remote Aboriginal communities.
The doctor's current challenge is closing the life expectancy gap caused by preventable chronic diseases. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Tribal sovereignty is at the heart of many issues in Indian country, and with the recent ICWA hearing and the White House Tribal Nation Summit coming up later this month, what's in store for tribes? Joining us is John Tashuda, an ICT regular contributor and a partner with Navigators Global. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me.
So the White House Tribal Nation Summit is coming up later this month. What are some of the key issues you think should be addressed?
Well, I think that there's a couple of key issues. There are outstanding issues that happen every year, such as appropriations, et cetera, that are left undone at this point. Tied to that is an issue that the tribes have been working very hard on the last couple of years, and that's advance appropriations for the Indian Health Service. As we have seen in the last 10 years, 15 years, the federal government seems to be caught in a cycle of disruption of its regular appropriations process and disagreements over spending. Caught in that is Indian healthcare, because Indian healthcare is funded by federal appropriations. If the federal government runs out of money or is stopped from spending money because there's not legislated appropriations, then the Indian Health Service has to drastically cut back the services it can provide. And this is a life and death matter. In general, Indian health has been a nonpartisan issue, and so I think that's something to highlight through the summit, and hopefully can translate into legislative action this year.
So the Biden administration has stated that it's deeply committed to honoring the trust and treaty responsibilities of tribes, but so far in his administration, do you think that promise has held true?
Well, I think he's tried. It's never easy. Obviously, every tribe is different. Even though a number of tribes share treaties, their experience through those can differ. And of course, there are hundreds of treaties out there with various tribes. So being able to honor each one of those to the letter of the word is a challenge for the federal government, because it needs to try to have a consistent and sort of equal delivery of programs, services, et cetera. So that takes a lot of work. I think the Biden administration has done a good job of trying to listen. They've done a lot of consultation. I understand that some changes, maybe some updates to consultation policies at some agencies is in the works. That's all great stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about the delivery of programs and services. And, it's hard to really criticize one administration to the next, because the problems that are endemic to the delivery of federal services to tribes have been around for decades. And so it's not a problem that goes away easily. It continues to have roadblocks. And so I think this administration is working hard through some of those roadblocks, but there's a lot of work to be done on those still.
I want to touch on ICWA and the recent hearing, and that ultimately puts tribal sovereignty at stake. What are some of the key takeaways from the hearing?
Well, it's an interesting clash between states' rights in general, the handling of family matters. Children and families are a state issue, but the United States, the federal government, is responsible for Indian families. And so the problem is that many of these issues get resolved in the first instance in state courts. And so there's always, we have this constitutional balance of powers between the states and the federal government, and trying to find that fine line where you can protect tribal communities and respect tribal sovereignty, but at the same time you respect the role that the states play in our Constitution. It's a difficult challenge. I think that came out during the hearing, and I have no idea, frankly, how the hearing will come out, what the ultimate ruling would be. I do think that there is recognition, that bipartisan recognition in Congress, that ICWA has largely been a huge improvement over the prior situation, and has been a huge boon to tribal communities. They've been able to keep their children in their homes. In fact, it's been so successful, you're seeing some other countries start to copy that. Look at Canada. We just saw in the previous news segment, really based on the notions that ICWA produced, that tribal communities can better take care of their children than just passing them out sort of into the public, is now being looked at and adopted by a lot of other countries. So I think that idea is well grounded, and again, in a sort of nonpartisan manner in Congress. So if the court does find fault with the legislation, my hope would be that Congress could get together and present some solutions and enact some solutions right away that would keep the regime in place for child care, adoption, et cetera, that ICWA has proven so successful at.
We're wrapping up our time here, John, but I wanted to bring up, with results from the election rolling in and Indigenous candidates making a lot of history this season, are there any candidates that you have your eyes on?
Well, I think strategically for tribes, it's incredibly important, and will be something that will be a big boon to tribes, and that's the election of now Senator-elect Mark Wayne Mullen in Oklahoma. In the past, we've had Ben Nighthorse Campbell, but he retired a number of years ago. We haven't actually had a tribal member sitting in the U.S. Senate for a few years, and that perspective that they bring, as a former Senate staffer, I can tell you that perspective is much needed. Mr. Mullen is from Oklahoma, huge tribal population, well aware of the issues that tribes face, healthcare, jurisdiction, all of these. So I think that's somebody that I think will be a great benefit to tribes to years to come, having him in the Senate.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
The traditional homelands of the Tohono O'odham people lay along what is now the international border between Arizona and Mexico. The Tohono O'odham people have developed a unique form of music called waila. Usually these bands are led by men, but in 2003, Gertrude Lopez formed her own band and named it Gertie and the T.O. Boyz. Let's take a listen to her music. She joins us now to talk more about her music. Hi, Gertie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Gertie, to start, could you tell us how your family contributed and influenced you in playing music?
Well, Actually, it was my dad, Augustine, the late Augustine Baptista Lopez Sr. He was a violinist, and when we were very small, he actually had his own mariachi group. Half of the group were O'odham, Tohono O'odham, and half the group were Mexicans. And they went all over and played for all kinds of celebrations and also played in the Catholic mass churches. And then my dad started his own waila band, which means dance in our language, and which consisted of violins. Back in the day, our ancestors played violins and guitars and just a big drum. There wasn't amplifiers like they are now. And so my dad had his own band, and he he actually I was his drummer back when I was in 8th grade. I remember playing for all night dances with my dad's band, and so he's inspired us, all my 9 brothers and sisters, to um, play the music because he was always playing it and practicing it, and took us to his practices as well. And so yeah, it was we knew the music, and my dad happened to come home with an accordion one day, and 2 of us kids picked it up and started teaching ourselves. A lot of it is we knew the songs and the music that we learned from my dad, and then we knew how to put some songs together. Me and my brother Steve picked up the accordion, and he taught himself and I taught myself, and we have very different styles. And by that time, there were other bands all over the reservation too, playing waila music, and had different kinds of violinists, and it was just awesome to hear that music and still remember that. As you know, here we are, years later, we still hear it.
And O'odham children, they grow up not just listening to this music, but also dancing to these songs. Can you give us could you give us an idea what those dances look like?
Okay, so it's polka style. There's one dance that's polka style that's mainly one step, and then we also have the mazurka and the chadis, which go 2 and 2 steps, and then we have the famous guaria that a lot of young people like to listen to right now, and it's just dancing by yourself. Those other dances, you have partners. You actually hold a partner, and the cumbia, you just dance by yourself, and then we also have the guaria, what we call a guaria, which is a certain type of square dancing, and everyone when they dance the guaria, it's kind of a hop, skip, jump type of dance, and so everyone just loves all different types of the songs that we play, and most of the songs that we do play for the dancing is for myself. I try to play the old school type of jadis and mazurkas, and yeah, and the everyone loves the cumbia, the famous cumbia.
It seems like that's an excellent way to build community. And you're teaching this music to kids, but why is it so important to continue teaching and playing this music?
Because that's teaching and playing and seeing the people. That's what our ancestors left us. I always say that I want to continue to reach out as many kids as I can to also teach that how to be a healthy musician, and also because that's something that my dad, had left us, and many other dads had left their kids, and so it's just very important because our music has been around since like since about the 1800s, and we want to continue that tradition of our social dance music here on the reservation.
Well, Gertie, it seems like you're a role model for your community. How did your community react when you decided to become your own band leader?
Well, I think everyone is kind of really proud of me of being a woman band leader and still playing the accordion and just trying my best to share our Tohono O'odham Waila music. We've been to places that I never thought I would be, to share our Waila music. And for one example is the Phoenician Americans in Minnesota. They've kind of adopted some of our music, and we learned Phoenician music as well. And I think that representing the Tohono O'odham and the people around me, I hear some good comments. So I think I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
As a woman band leader, and it's tough sometimes. It's very tough, and to manage the band and everything. But like I said, my thing is to go share our Waila music with the country.
So this music is sometimes referred to as chicken scratch music. Do you know why, or can you tell us why that is?
Yeah, the chicken scratch, that came from, I don't know exactly who started saying chicken scratch, but when you dance the cumbia or something, when you're on the reservation and you're dancing, we didn't have like what do you call it, a sidewalk type of thing to dance on. We danced on the ground with and when you danced, you just the sand just come up like chickens when chickens are moving around. So they started calling that chicken scratch. It first was many years ago. It was always waila, and then I don't know how that chicken scratch came out, but it came out, and then we started wanting to say waila music or waila dance instead of chicken scratch. So rarely do I hear chicken scratch anymore. I hear a lot of waila.
Your music has taken you across the country. Could you tell us about some of the places where you've gotten the opportunity to play your music?
Yeah, well, I think it was back in 2012, I believe. I went to the Native American Music Awards in New York and Niagara Falls, and I got to sing my song, a song I wrote a long time ago. It's called Sheila's Rasta, and I got to sing that song at the Native American Music Awards VIP party, along with some other guys, my cousin Native Cree, Gertrude Lopez, and Cruz band, Alex Cruz. They helped me out with playing that song in New York. And then so I also was fortunate enough to take my band to Minnesota to be part of the FinFest USA in Minneapolis, and we stayed there for eight days and did some concerts over there, and we got to go to Caborca, Sonora, Mexico, to their big celebration they have every year in April 6th. We've been to San Jose, LA, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Just kind of. I also do. Waila music has taken me places that I never thought I would. I do theater, and I do Waila music within the theater, and we just did a show just not too long ago in Denver. And I was really happy to do that show because I not only played my accordion with what the show was about, but they also let me play some of my Waila music, which I was really happy because I got to choose what I could play. And so I continue to do the theater with my waila music, and I'm also right now recruiting some younger Tohono O'odham to join theater as well. And right now I'm getting ready to, I put together a little high school do acoustic concert here. They're going to be having a national education conference here in Tucson. So I'm trying to do my best to share everything I know and teach the young people where I've been and try to make that a positive impact on them so they too could be successful in their music.
Well, Gertie, thank you so much for joining us today and teaching us. I really liked learning from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
The Sand Creek Massacre, the betrayal that changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever, focuses on tribal accounts of Colorado's deadliest day. Exhibition details at historycoloradocenter.org.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.